Hi guys, and welcome to another one of our Spain Under-21 recap videos. Spain, as you'll all know, they're already through to the final after beating Italy, and they'll face Germany, who knocked England out on penalties to, fuel those stereotypes all over again. I was in Tichy for that game, but David was lucky enough to see the Dani Ceballos show live. So we're just going to talk through it a bit. We'll probably have another video previewing the final. But David, do you think that this really was the biggest test? It was definitely the game with the most on the line, there's no debate in that. But after playing Portugal in the group stage, there was debate, is that the toughest hurdle that they've already got over? Or were you surprised maybe with what Italy had to offer?
I think Italy were excellent, they really were. That first half, they really went toe-to-toe with Spain. And Spain by no means were the dominant team. In fact, Italy were really, really good. And there were certain areas of the field that they attacked Spain. We'll talk about it later. That they really got at Spain and they created chances for themselves. And I think the quality from both teams was excellent. I will say this game, the first half especially, from both teams together, it was such a high level. The quality on show was brilliant. Individuals stood out, and then the teams were functioning really well. Guys like Caldara for Italy, excellent. And then Max Llorente, again, was very unassuming in that first half. And then everything changed in the second half.
And when everything changed, I think it's bizarre that we've seen a game where Sal Niguez, he might even win the Golden Boot of the tournament at this rate. He scores a hat-trick on their biggest night of the tournament so far, and yet people still come away talking about Dani Ceballos. And I know that you're definitely an advocate of people talking about Dani Ceballos.
Yeah, I've been trying to create this sort of hysteria around Dani Ceballos for many years now.
And now he's doing
so
job
now,
for you.
Yeah, it all just went crazy. And I was like, I maybe went to tweet about him, and then suddenly I looked at my timeline, and everybody's talking about Dani Ceballos now. No, it's good. But yeah, it was the Ceballos show. We've got Saul, who scored a brilliant hat trick. Against big game Saul, not better call Saul. It's big game Saul, and he stepped up again when Spain needed him, when the game was just at a level heading. And Ceballos, what he did in that second half was just remarkable. You won't see many better individual performances at youth level. I recall Thiago a few years ago who really stood up in certain games and dominated. And Ceballos did exactly that. And he was balling, basically. The skills were out. There was the precise passing as well. Everything was there. It was the complete performance from Ceballos, and it was staggering.
So obviously you mentioned Thiago. Obviously with Spain having so many midfield options, playing so well, being so free-flowing, being so exciting, people have, harked back to people like Thiago, people like Isco. Do you think that this generation, are they on a level kind of footing with that team?
Well, you look at this generation, what they're doing right now, don't forget a lot of these players who are in this Spain Under-21 team now also won the Under-19 championships, so they know each other very well. Mere, Vallejo, Asensio, Ceballos, Mayoral, they were all in that excellent Under-19 team, and they've raised the level straight away. I remember when they got promoted to the Under-21 straight after, and there was almost no change. They adapted so well, and we see now at Under-21 level how dominant they are. And you could say Ceballos, Asensio, and Vallejo are probably ready to go to the first team now.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, with the World Cup on the horizon, you definitely can't rule it out, and it makes it all the more galling, I think, that people have been deprived of an extra 90 minutes of Dani Ceballos, an extra full game of Dani Ceballos, when Saladez went with Denis Suarez in that first game.
Yeah, he went with Denis Suarez.
I mean, the two changes from the start of the tournament, from the team that lined up against Macedonia, Johnny's come in at left back for Jose Gaya, and then also you have Ceballos, of course, for Denis Suarez. Do you think, obviously this is now the A team, but do you think that these changes, Saladez, he can get some criticisms, but do you think this is definitely somewhere, in terms of the balance of his team, do you think this is somewhere that he's done very well this month?
Yeah, he's done it superbly. I think to bring in, Gaya played very, very well against Macedonia. So for Saladez to judge and say, look, we need to take Gaya out and bring in Johnny, who's a little bit more balanced, a little bit more disciplined on the defensive end. I think Gaya's made massive improvements in terms of his defensive contribution for Valencia over the years. He is, don't forget, he used to be a striker at youth level. So for him to, be quite a decent defender now is impressive. So I think to bring Johnny in and the balance that he offers, he's very aware of his positioning. I thought he handled the Cancelo threat really, really well. Yeah. And then he's carried on starting, and so he should, because he deserves his place, I think. So yeah, it was a good decision by Saladez.
I think on on the other side, on literally the opposite flank, you've got Hector Bellerin.
Yeah, interesting.
And I think
yeah.
both fullback positions, Spain have got depth. You can switch out, obviously, Gaia, as we've said, he's played very well in this tournament. When Odriozola came in against Serbia, he was extremely good as well. He picked up an assist, and I really like him as a player. Do you think maybe, obviously I think Arsenal fans, for example, that they might think that Bellerin's coming into this competition and that he should be expected to be a star. Obviously, with the experience that he's got in England, he would be expecting himself to be a star. But it's strange that in a system where wing-backs are really important to getting forward, really important to creating chances, really important to creating space, because of just how Saladez likes them to really hug the touchline and even come inside the wingers and let the wingers go out and hug the touchline instead. Do you think it's perhaps strange that Bellerin, in a system which asks a lot from the wing-backs, that he's maybe not, impressed as much as the likes of Gaia, as much as the likes of Johnny, even as much as the likes of Odriozola?
It's interesting because he's given a role, Bellerin, in the Spain team, where he's got a lot of liberation. He can get forward whenever he wants. I made the point to Simon. A lot of the times, it's almost like he's playing like a striker because he tucks inside when Spain do have the ball, and he's allowed to go around. And he can retain weight, but he can also come inside. So he's almost like a right-sided striker at times. He finds himself on the edge of the penalty area, sometimes in the penalty area, quite a little bit. So, and then you contrast with, on the other side, with left back, with Johnny, who's now been asked to, he hovers maybe just on the halfway line, just inside his own half. So he's still pushing up. He's still trying to offer a little bit of support in the midfield as an extra outlet to keep retain weight. But Bellerin is always pushing up really high. So he's going to be, at times, exposed, especially when he's got no direct protection there. He's got Deulofeu. Deulofeu isn't even contributing on the attacking end at the moment, never mind the defensive end. So Bellerin's always going to have that big gap. And he's quick, he's quick, Bellerin, but he's not going to get back every single time. That's a big bit of ground to cover. So he is going to look like he's exposed. And Italy did get behind him a few times when he was pushing up in that position where I mentioned. So that's understandable, I think. So I think at times I feel sympathy for Bellerin in the role that he's got, but then he's also maybe needing to be more balanced, I think, a little bit more aware.
One thing that I'm sure we'll probably go into this in a preview video that we'll do before the final, but do you almost think, after seeing in the first game the performance of Asensio, in the semi-final the performance of Ceballos, regardless of what happens on Friday night, will this tournament still be held as their tournament, do you think?
No, they need one more performance. I think the demands are that high in Spain and of this generation. You look at this is probably the most hype. You got to look when Thiago and Isco were coming into the tournament last time. They weren't, I don't think, hyped up as much as what Asensio and Ceballos have been, personally. And they've played a lot more football as well, first team football now as well, Asensio and Ceballos. So I think they have to deliver. And don't get me wrong, the players are really aware of their expectations, which is fantastic to see from a young group. They're not arrogant. Their feet are firmly on their ground, considering the hype they get. And they've handled it really, really well. But I think they know that there has to be one more big performance. And I'm talking about an improvement on that second half in Italy. I think they have to really, really cruise against Germany and at a point to where they are dominating possession and to a point where they are showing all their attacking might. And I think Asensio has to step up again. I think he had a quiet semi-finals where Ceballos took over, and I think Ceballos has to repeat what he's done. So the pressure is there, I think. So Spain are through, Germany are through. We're going to make another video talking about all of it. We're going to see, it's another tough one where it's hard to gauge the balance between the two sides. But I would say for me that Spain, that they're looking very, very good value, and I think they'll be very disappointed to not at least put an extremely good show. But I think the big question is, who can take centre stage most prominently? I think that's definitely going to be a big one. Can the two share it at once? It has to be the two, because Isco and Thiago did it, where everything was rotating around them. And Asensio and Ceballos, they share the room together at the Spanish camp. They have to get their heads together and say, right, this needs to be our moment. We have to, whenever anybody looks back at this tournament, they'll kind of have to remember this performance when they dominate. And that's the bar. It was raised by Isco and Thiago. Now, Ceballos and Asensio, they have to take that bar and raise it extremely, extremely high. It's that much pressure on them.
Well, thanks for watching, guys. We'll be putting out another video previewing, like we've said, very soon, so keep an eye out for that. And if you've got any questions ahead of the final, obviously we've been out for the month. We've been with the Spain team quite a lot. We've watched a lot of football out here. So if you've got any questions, put them in the comments below or tweet at us. We'll have our Twitter handles in the description. And yeah, I mean, we want to get you guys involved. Obviously, some people might only tune in for the semi-finals. They might only tune in for the final because that's when it interests them. So if there's anything that you think you're missing, then feel free to let us know, because we're here really to, you know, fill in the blanks and maybe do little journeys away that other journalists that might be on their holidays. So yeah, keep your eye out for that video, and we will see you then.